On a distant planet far from Earth, beneath a sky painted orange by its sun, the Xylari people lived peaceful lives. Their cities were made of crystal, shimmering like jewels under the sunlight. For centuries, they thrived in harmony with their environment, building a society that valued knowledge and tradition. Among their most cherished stories were tales of an ancient race called humans. These stories spoke of beings who once ruled the stars but vanished without explanation. Over time, the Xylari dismissed these tales as myths, legends meant to teach lessons rather than reflect reality. Kale was different from most Xylari. He had always been curious about the world beyond his own. With short brown hair and sharp, blue eyes, he spent much of his time studying old texts and examining strange objects found in the wilderness. Unlike many others, Kale believed there might be truth hidden within the myths. His fascination often led him into arguments with more skeptical members of his community, especially Lyra, a historian known for her logical approach to history. She saw no reason to waste time chasing fantasies when there were real problems to solve. One day, while exploring a field near the edge of the desert, Kyle stumbled upon something unusual. A recent meteor shower had scattered debris across the area, and among the rocks and dust he noticed fragments of metal glinting faintly in the sunlight. At first glance, they looked unremarkable, but upon closer inspection, Kyle realized they bore markings unlike anything he had ever seen before. The symbols etched into the surface were intricate yet unfamiliar, resembling designs described in ancient texts about humanity. Excited by his discovery, Kyle rushed back to the city to show Lyra what he had found. Though she often doubted his theories, she respected his dedication and agreed to examine the fragments. As she studied them under a magnifying lens, her expression shifted from skepticism to astonishment. The patterns matched descriptions of human technology mentioned in some of the oldest records. It seemed impossible, but the evidence suggested that humans might have existed after all, and perhaps even left traces behind. Before they could share their findings with the council, alarms began blaring throughout the city. Everyone stopped what they were doing and looked toward the horizon. A massive object streaked through the atmosphere, trailing fire and smoke as it descended rapidly. Moments later, it crashed into the desert with a deafening roar, sending shockwaves rippling through the ground. Panic spread quickly as citizens wondered if the crash posed any danger. Kyle and Lyra wasted no time heading toward the site of the impact. They traveled in a small hovercraft weaving through dunes until they reached the wreckage. What they found took their breath away. The object was not natural. It was a ship, sleek and metallic, scorched black from re-entry. Its design was alien yet strangely familiar, reminding Kale of illustrations he had seen in books about human spacecraft. They approached cautiously, unsure whether anyone or anything might still be inside. As they explored the damaged vessel, they discovered signs of life. Panels flickered weakly, emitting soft hums of residual energy. Scattered around the interior were tools, clothing, and other items bearing the same mysterious symbols as the metal fragments Kyle had found earlier. Everything pointed to one conclusion. This ship belonged to humans, or at least descendants of humans. Before they could investigate further, movement outside caught their attention. Shadows moved along the edges of the dunes, and Kyle instinctively grabbed Lyra's arm, pulling her behind a piece of wreckage for cover. Slowly, figures emerged from the sands. They wore tattered uniforms and carried weapons, their faces hardened by years of survival. One of them stepped forward, a man with rugged features and piercing green eyes. "Who are you?" he demanded, his voice firm but wary. Kyle hesitated before answering. "We're from the city," he said finally. "We saw your ship crash and came to help." The man exchanged glances with his companions before nodding slightly. "My name is Ryan," he said. "And yes, we're human, or what's left of us." Ryan explained that humanity had not disappeared entirely. After a catastrophic war destroyed their homeworld, survivors fled across the galaxy, scattering to avoid detection. They had managed to stay hidden for generations, relying on secrecy and ingenuity to survive. But now their presence had been compromised. The crash wasn't an accident. It was caused by forces hunting them down. Lyra listened intently, her mind racing with questions. If what Ryan said was true, then everything the Xylari thought they knew about the universe was wrong. Humans weren't myths. They were real, and they were here. Yet alongside excitement came fear. Who were these hunters? And why did they want to destroy humanity? Ryan didn't have time to answer all their questions. Instead, he warned them of immediate danger. The crash would draw unwanted attention and they needed to act quickly. He urged Kyle and Lyra to return to their city and warn their leaders. Time was running out, and the fate of both their peoples depended on how they responded to this unprecedented threat. Back in the crystalline city, Kale and Lyra faced a difficult decision. Should they reveal what they had learned to the council, risking panic among the population? Or should they keep the information secret, buying time to prepare for whatever came next? As they debated their options, sensors picked up movement in the skies above. Something was coming, a fleet of ships descending toward Xylar. Whatever choice they made, they knew it would shape the future of their world forever. Kale and Lyra hurried back to the city, their minds racing with thoughts of what Ryan had told them. The weight of the situation pressed heavily on their shoulders. They knew they couldn't keep this secret for long, but they also feared how the council and the rest of the Xylari would react. News of humans being real, let alone survivors hiding among the stars, would shake their society to its core. Yet, the looming threat of the hunters Ryan mentioned made silence equally dangerous. When they arrived at the council chambers, the room was already filled with tension. Other council members were discussing the crash in hushed tones, debating whether it posed a danger to their people. Some argued that the object was likely a rogue asteroid or space junk, while others worried it might be evidence of hostile aliens. Kale and Lyra exchanged glances before stepping forward to speak. "We've seen the wreckage," Kale began, his voice steady despite the nerves twisting in his stomach. "It's not natural, it's a ship, a human ship." The room fell silent. For a moment no one spoke. Then murmurs erupted, growing louder as disbelief turned into skepticism. One council member, an older man named Doran, stood up. His face was stern, his gray hair neatly combed. "Humans are myths," he said firmly. "Stories meant to entertain children. Are you suggesting we believe in fairy tales now?" Lyra stepped in, holding up one of the metal fragments they had brought back from the crash site. "This is proof," she said, placing it on the table. "These symbols match ancient texts about human technology, and there's more. The survivors who came with the ship confirmed it themselves." Doran frowned, picking up the fragment and examining it closely. Though he tried to hide it, a flicker of doubt crossed his face. Still, he wasn't ready to accept such a radical idea without resistance. "Even if this is true," he said, lowering the piece, "what does it matter? Humans are gone. Their time has passed." "They're not gone," Kale interrupted. "They've been hiding, scattered across the galaxy after losing their homeworld. But now they're here, and so are those hunting them." Before anyone could respond, alarms blared again, cutting through the air like a knife. Everyone froze, turning toward the large window overlooking the city. In the distance, dark shapes moved across the sky, ships descending rapidly, their forms sleek and menacing. Panic spread through the chamber as the realization hit. The hunters Ryan warned them about had arrived. Ryan and his companions appeared moments later, having followed Kale and Lyra back to the city. Their faces were grim as they entered the council chambers. Ryan wasted no time explaining the gravity of the situation. "Those ships belong to the Vorn," he said, his voice low but urgent. "They're ruthless. An empire built on conquest and fear. If they find us, they won't stop until every last human, and anyone helping us, is dead." The council erupted into chaos. Some demanded immediate action, while others called for surrender, hoping to avoid bloodshed. Kyle raised his voice, above the noise. "We can't give up," he said. "If we stand together, we have a chance. If we split apart, we're finished." Ryan nodded in agreement. "We need your help," he admitted. "Our ship is damaged, but we can use it to create a diversion." While the Vorin focus on us, you can evacuate your people and prepare to defend yourselves. Lyra added her support, addressing the council directly. This isn't just about humans anymore. The Vorin won't care who you are once they start attacking. We either fight together or fall separately. After much debate, the council reluctantly agreed to cooperate. Plans were set in motion to fortify the city and prepare for battle. Kale worked alongside Ryan and his team, learning everything he could about their weapons and tactics. The humans carried advanced tools and devices far beyond anything the Xylari had ever seen, including energy rifles and shield generators. Though intimidating at first, Kale quickly adapted, his natural curiosity driving him to master the new technology. Meanwhile, Lyra focused on rallying the Xylari citizens. She traveled through the city, speaking to families and workers, urging them to stay calm and follow evacuation orders. Many were frightened, unsure of what to believe, but Lyra's confidence inspired trust. Slowly, the community began to unite, preparing for whatever lay ahead. As night fell, the atmosphere grew tense. The Vorn fleet orbited overhead, casting eerie shadows across the crystalline towers. Scouts reported that smaller ships had begun landing outside the city, deploying drones and soldiers to search for signs of life. Every second counted, and the pressure mounted. Ryan led a small group, including Kale, to the edge of the desert, where the crashed ship lay hidden. Using makeshift tools and parts salvaged from the wreckage, they worked tirelessly to repair its engines. Claire, the engineer from Ryan's crew, coordinated the effort, her hands moving swiftly as she connected wires and adjusted controls. Sweat dripped down her forehead, but she didn't stop, knowing their survival depended on getting the ship operational. While Claire focused on repairs, Kyle kept watch, scanning the horizon for any sign of the enemy. The desert was eerily quiet, the only sounds coming from the wind whipping sand against the rocks. Suddenly, a faint hum broke the silence. Kale turned sharply, spotting a drone hovering in the distance. Its red sensors glowed ominously as it scanned the area. "Trouble!" Kale shouted, alerting the others. Without hesitation, Ryan grabbed an energy rifle and fired a single shot, disabling the drone before it could send a signal back to the Vorn fleet. The explosion echoed through the desert, briefly illuminating the darkness. "We don't have much time," Ryan said, reloading his weapon. "Get the ship ready to move." Claire nodded, working even faster. Minutes felt like hours, as they waited for the engines to power up. Finally, a low rumble shook the ground as the ship roared to life. The hull glowed faintly, shedding light on the anxious faces around it. "Let's go," Ryan ordered, climbing aboard. Kale hesitated for a moment, looking back toward the city. He thought of Lyra and the countless lives depending on their success. Taking a deep breath, he followed Ryan inside. The ship lifted off, rising slowly into the sky. As it gained altitude, Ryan activated a beacon designed to attract the Vorn's attention. Almost instantly, several enemy ships broke formation and turned toward them, chasing the decoy. The plan was working, but it was only the beginning. Back in the city, Lyra watched as the Vorn fleet split, some ships pursuing the fleeing craft, while others remained behind. She knew the real battle was yet to come. With the council's approval, she organized a defensive line using modified mining equipment and repurposed machinery. Though crude compared to the Vorn's advanced arsenal, these makeshift weapons gave the Xylari a fighting chance. As dawn approached, the first wave of attackers descended upon the city. Explosions rocked the streets, shattering the crystalline structures that had stood for centuries. Smoke filled the air, choking out the sunlight. Amidst the chaos, Lyra stood firm, leading the resistance with unwavering determination. Each strike against the invaders fueled her resolve, reminding her why they fought, not just for survival but for the future of both their peoples. Though outnumbered and outgunned, the combined forces of humans and Xylari refused to yield. Together they held their ground, buying precious time for Ryan and his team to execute the next phase of their plan. The outcome remained uncertain, but one thing was clear. Humanity and the Xylari had forged an unbreakable bond, united by shared purpose and hope. The battle raged on as the Vorn forces closed in on the Xylari city. Their ships hovered menacingly above, unleashing waves of destruction that shattered the crystalline towers and turned once beautiful streets into rubble. Fires burned brightly against the darkening sky, casting an orange glow over the chaos below. The air was thick with smoke and the deafening roar of explosions. Despite the overwhelming odds, the combined resistance of humans and Xylari refused to falter. Kyle sat inside the fleeing ship, gripping the edge of his seat as Ryan piloted them toward a distant canyon. The plan was risky. Use the damaged craft to lure the bulk of the Vorn fleet away from the city while Claire worked to repair another hidden vessel capable of faster-than-light travel. Every second felt like an eternity as they zigzagged through the atmosphere, dodging enemy fire. Behind them, several Vorn ships pursued relentlessly, their sleek designs cutting through the air with terrifying precision. "They're gaining on us," Kale said, peering out the window at the growing number of pursuers. His voice betrayed a mix of fear and determination. "Hold tight," Ryan replied, his hands steady on the controls. "We've been in tighter spots before." Claire, seated nearby, focused intently on monitoring the ship's systems. Her fingers danced across the console, rerouting power to keep the engines running just long enough to reach the canyon. "If we can make it there, we'll have a chance to lose them," she muttered under her breath. As they approached the jagged cliffs, Ryan executed a sharp turn, sending the ship diving into the narrow passageway. The rocky walls loomed close on either side, forcing the larger Vorn vessels to slow down or risk crashing. For a brief moment, the pursuing ships fell behind, giving the crew a sliver of hope. But the reprieve didn't last long. Smaller drones swarmed into the canyon, firing energy blasts that struck the hull with alarming frequency. "We're taking too much damage," Claire warned, her eyes scanning the readings. "Another hit like that and we're done." Ryan gritted his teeth, pushing the ship harder than ever before. "Not yet," he growled. With one final burst of speed, they emerged from the canyon and into open desert. Ahead, partially buried beneath layers of sand, lay the hidden vessel, the Eclipse. Its sleek form gleamed faintly in the moonlight, a beacon of salvation amidst the turmoil. "Get ready to jump," Ryan ordered as he brought the damaged ship to a rough landing near the Eclipse. Without waiting for confirmation, he grabbed a bag of essential tools and bolted outside, followed closely by Kale and Claire. Sand whipped around them as they sprinted toward the second ship, their movements frantic but purposeful. Inside the Eclipse, Claire immediately set to work repairing its systems. The ship had lain dormant for years, and starting it up required more effort than anticipated. Panels sparked and wires hummed as she patched together circuits, her brow furrowed in concentration. Ryan stood guard at the entrance, keeping watch for any sign of approaching enemies. Meanwhile, Kale assisted where he could, handing Claire tools and holding pieces in place when needed. Back in the city, Lyra led the defense efforts with unwavering resolve. Armed with modified mining equipment and makeshift weapons, the Xylari fought valiantly against the Vorn ground forces. Each strike was calculated, targeting key points to disrupt the invaders' advance. Though outnumbered, their knowledge of the terrain gave them a slight advantage. They used the ruined buildings as cover, launching surprise attacks before retreating to safer positions. Lyra moved among her people, shouting encouragement and coordinating strategies. Her calm demeanor inspired confidence, even as the battle grew increasingly desperate. When a group of Vorn soldiers breached the central plaza, she joined the fight herself, wielding a crude energy weapon crafted from salvaged parts. The weapon crackled with electricity as she fired, striking down 2 enemies before ducking behind a fallen pillar to reload. Nearby, other members of Ryan's team worked alongside the Xylari, teaching them how to use human technology effectively. One man, named Ethan, demonstrated how to operate a portable shield generator, creating a protective barrier that allowed civilians to escape danger zones. Another, a woman named Mia, coordinated medical teams, tending to wounded fighters and ensuring no one was left behind. Despite their efforts, the tide of the battle began to shift. The Vorn deployed heavier weaponry, including massive walkers that crushed everything in their path. Buildings crumbled under their weight, and the defenders were forced to retreat further into the city. Morale wavered as casualties mounted, and some began to question whether they could hold out much longer. Then something unexpected happened. While scavenging supplies from an abandoned lab, Kyle stumbled upon a discovery that changed everything. Hidden among dusty shelves and forgotten equipment were blueprints for advanced energy weapons, human designs far superior to anything currently in use. Realizing the potential implications, he rushed back to Lyra, who was overseeing the evacuation of civilians. These could turn the tide, Kale said breathlessly, showing her the plans. If we can build even one of these weapons, we might stand a chance. Lyra hesitated, weighing the risks. Such powerful technology could easily fall into the wrong hands, or corrupt those who wielded it. Yet faced with the imminent threat of annihilation, she knew they had no choice. Do it, she said finally. But be careful. We don't want this becoming a weapon of mass destruction. With renewed purpose, Kale gathered a team of engineers and technicians to begin constructing the prototype weapon. Working tirelessly, they assembled components scavenged from the wreckage of both the crashed ship and the city itself. Hours passed in a blur of activity, each person driven by the hope that their efforts would save countless lives. Meanwhile, aboard the Eclipse, Claire completed the repairs just as the first wave of Vorn drones arrived. Alarms blared as the ship's systems came online, signaling readiness for launch. "We're good to go," she announced, relief evident in her voice. Ryan nodded, climbing into the pilot's seat. "Let's get out of here." As the Eclipse lifted off, it unleashed a pulse of energy designed to disable nearby enemies temporarily. The blast sent shockwaves rippling through the air, knocking several drones out of the sky and buying precious time for the remaining defenders. In the city, the prototype weapon was finally complete. Mounted atop a reinforced platform, it resembled a large cannon powered by unstable energy cores. Lyra positioned it at the heart of the battlefield, ordering all available fighters to protect it at all costs. When the Vorn launched another assault, she activated the weapon, aiming it directly at their largest walker. A beam of pure energy erupted from the cannon, slicing through the walker's armor like paper. The machine staggered, then collapsed in a heap of twisted metal. Cheers erupted from the defenders as the tide of the battle shifted dramatically. Emboldened by the success, the Xylari pressed forward, driving the Vorn back step by step. Though victory seemed within reach, the cost had been immense. Entire neighborhoods lay in ruins and many lives had been lost. Yet, amid the devastation, a sense of unity emerged. Humans and Xylari stood side by side, proving that even in the face of overwhelming odds, courage and cooperation could overcome despair. As the Eclipse soared into the sky, carrying survivors to safety, Lyra watched from the ground, her heart heavy but hopeful. She knew the fight wasn't over, not yet. But for the first time, she believed they truly had a chance. Together, humanity and the Xylari would rise again, stronger than ever before. The Eclipse soared through the sky, its sleek form cutting through clouds of smoke and ash as it climbed higher into the atmosphere. Inside, Ryan gripped the controls tightly, his eyes fixed on the horizon ahead. The ship vibrated with each burst of acceleration, straining to escape the gravitational pull of the planet below. Behind them, the Vorn fleet scrambled to regroup, their larger vessels struggling to match the Eclipse's speed and agility. For now, they were safe. But only for now. Kyle sat nearby, staring out a window at the burning city far below. Fires still raged in the distance, illuminating the darkened landscape like dying stars. He thought of Lyra and the others who remained behind, fighting to hold off the Vorn invaders. Though the prototype weapon had turned the tide temporarily, he knew the battle was far from over. Every second counted, and the weight of responsibility pressed heavily on his shoulders. "We need to get back there," Kyle said finally, breaking the tense silence. His voice was firm but tinged with urgency. "They're counting on us." Ryan glanced at him briefly before returning his focus to the controls. "We will," he replied. "But first we need to make sure this ship is ready for what's coming next. If we screw this up, none of it matters." Claire nodded in agreement, her hands moving swiftly across the console as she ran diagnostics on the Eclipse's systems. "He's right," she added. "If we can reach orbit and activate the faster-than-light drive, we'll have a real chance to bring reinforcements, or at least find somewhere safe to regroup." Kyle clenched his fists, frustration bubbling beneath the surface. He wanted to argue, to insist they turn the ship around immediately, but deep down, he knew Ryan and Claire were right. They couldn't afford to act recklessly, not when so many lives depended on their success. Still, the thought of leaving Lyra and the Xylari behind gnawed at him. As the eclipse broke free of the planet's atmosphere, the vastness of space stretched. Out before them, a canvas of endless black dotted with distant stars. On the view screen, the Vorn fleet loomed ominously, their ships forming a blockade around the planet. It was clear they weren't about to let anyone leave without a fight. "Here we go," Ryan muttered, banking the ship sharply to avoid incoming fire. Energy blasts streaked past, lighting up the darkness with flashes of blue and green. The Eclipse shuddered under the impact of a glancing blow, but its shields held firm. For now, Claire worked furiously to reroute power to the engines, trying to squeeze every bit of speed out of the damaged vessel. "We're almost in range," she called out, her voice strained but steady. "Just a little farther." Kale watched anxiously as the Eclipse darted between enemy ships, narrowly avoiding collisions and explosions. The Vorn pilots were relentless, their formations tightening as they closed in on their prey. But Ryan's skill kept them one step ahead, weaving through the chaos with precision that bordered on miraculous. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Claire announced, "Faster-than-light drive online, initiating jump sequence." A low hum filled the cabin as the Eclipse prepared to enter hyperspace. Outside, the Vorn fleet intensified their attack, sensing their quarry slipping away. Explosions rocked the ship, shaking it violently as alarms blared throughout the cockpit. Kale braced himself against the wall, his heart pounding in his chest. "Hold on!" Ryan shouted, pulling back on the controls with all his strength. In an instant, the ship surged forward, leaving the Vorn fleet behind as it disappeared into the swirling vortex of hyperspace. The sudden acceleration pushed everyone back into their seats, the world outside reduced to streaks of light and color. For several moments no one spoke. The only sound was the faint hum of the ship's engines as it raced through the void. Then slowly, reality began to settle in. They had escaped, for now. Back on the planet, the battle continued to rage. Lyra stood amidst the ruins of the central plaza, her body battered but unbroken. Around her, the surviving Xylari and humans fought side by side, holding their ground against wave after wave of Vorn attackers. The prototype weapon had given them a crucial advantage, but the cost had been high. Buildings lay in smoldering heaps and the streets were littered with debris and casualties. Despite the odds, morale remained strong. The alliance forged between humans and Xylari had proven itself resilient, born not just out of necessity but out of shared hope for a better future. Each person on the battlefield carried that hope with them, fueling their determination to keep fighting, even as exhaustion threatened to overwhelm them. Lyra moved among her people, shouting orders and offering words of encouragement. Her voice carried authority but also compassion, reminding everyone why they were fighting. When a group of Vorn soldiers advanced toward their position, she raised her weapon without hesitation, firing a burst of energy that sent them retreating. Nearby, Ethan coordinated efforts to fortify the remaining defenses. Using salvaged materials and human technology, he helped construct makeshift barriers to protect civilians and injured fighters. Mia worked tirelessly alongside medical teams, treating wounds and comforting those who had lost loved ones. Together, they formed a network of support that kept the resistance alive. Then, just as the situation seemed dire, a new development changed everything. Sensors detected a massive object entering the atmosphere, a ship unlike any they had seen before. At first, fear spread quickly. Some worried it might be another Vorn vessel. But as the ship descended closer, its design became clear. It was the Eclipse, returning to aid the fight. Cheers erupted across the battlefield as the Eclipse unleashed, a barrage of energy weapons targeting key Vorn positions. Its arrival tipped the scales decisively in favor of the defenders. With renewed vigor, the combined forces launched a counterattack, driving the Vorn back step by step until they were forced to retreat entirely. When the dust settled, the survivors gathered in the remnants of the central plaza. Exhaustion hung heavy in the air, but so did relief and pride. They had faced impossible odds and emerged victorious thanks to unity and courage. As Ryan and his crew disembarked from the Eclipse, Kale rushed to Lyra's side. For a moment, neither spoke. They simply embraced, grateful to be reunited. When they finally pulled apart, Lyra smiled weakly. "You came back," she said softly. "We promised we would," Kale replied, his voice thick with emotion. "And we're not done yet." In the days that followed, the alliance between humans and Xylari grew stronger than ever. Working together, they rebuilt what had been destroyed, creating something even greater in its place. The knowledge shared between the two species sparked innovation and progress, laying the foundation for a brighter future. Under Ryan's leadership, the Eclipse became a symbol of hope, a beacon guiding others to join the fight against tyranny. And as it disappeared into the vastness of space once more, carrying representatives of both races aboard, its crew carried with them the promise of unity, resilience, and the unyielding belief that no matter how dark the night, the dawn would always come. The Eclipse drifted silently through the void of space, its crew weary but resolute. After escaping the Vorn blockade and returning to aid the battle on Xylar, they had achieved a hard-fought victory. But it was only the beginning. The Vorn empire was vast, stretching across countless star systems, and their thirst for conquest showed no signs of slowing. If humanity and the Xylari hoped to survive, they needed more than courage and makeshift weapons. They needed allies. Ryan stood on the bridge, staring at the navigation console as the ship's systems plotted their next course. His face was lined with fatigue, but his eyes burned with purpose. "We can't stay hidden forever," he said, breaking the silence. "If we want to stand a chance against the Vorn, we need to find others willing to fight back." Kyle nodded, from his seat nearby. He had spent hours poring over maps and data, searching for potential havens where survivors or resistance groups might be hiding. "There are rumors," he began cautiously. "Stories about colonies that escaped the Vorn's reach. Some say they're out there, scattered across uncharted sectors." Lyra stepped forward, her arms crossed as she considered the idea. "It's risky," she admitted, "but staying put is just as dangerous. If the Vorn come back, and we won't have the strength to hold them off again," Claire chimed in, her tone practical but firm. "We also need supplies. The Eclipse took heavy damage during the last jump. Without repairs, we won't make it far." Ryan turned to face the group, his expression unwavering. "Then we'll take the risk. We'll search for allies, gather resources, and build a force strong enough to push back against the Vorn. But we move carefully, every decision counts." With a destination set, the Eclipse jumped into hyperspace once more. Days passed in tense anticipation as they traveled deeper into unknown territory. Along the way, they encountered remnants of destroyed worlds, planets reduced to barren wastelands by the Vorn's relentless campaigns. Each site served as a grim reminder of what was at stake. Finally, after weeks of travel, sensors picked up faint signals emanating from a distant moon orbiting a gas giant. The readings were weak, almost indistinguishable from background noise, but they hinted at artificial activity. Ryan brought the Eclipse out of hyperspace, approaching cautiously to avoid detection. As they drew closer, the source of the signal became clear. A small outpost carved into the rocky surface of the moon. Its structures were crude, built from scrap metal and salvaged parts, but they bore signs of life. Lights flickered faintly within domed habitats, and automated defenses tracked the Eclipse's approach. "This could be it," Kyle said, leaning forward in his seat. "A survivor colony." Ryan activated the ship's communication system, broadcasting a message on all frequencies. "This is Ryan of the Eclipse. We mean no harm. We're looking for allies in the fight against the Vorn." For several agonizing, Minutes, there was no response. Then static crackled over the speakers, followed by a voice roughened by years of hardship. "You're either very brave or very foolish to come here," the voice replied. "Who are you?" Ryan exchanged glances with his crew before answering. "We're humans, and friends of the Xylari. We know what the Vorn have done to your people. We want to help." After a pause, the voice responded. "Dock at Landing Bay 3. But if this is a trick, you won't leave alive." The Eclipse landed gently inside the dimly lit bay, its engines powering down as the crew prepared to disembark. Armed guards greeted them as they exited the ship, their weapons trained on the newcomers. A man stepped forward, his face weathered but sharp, his dark hair streaked with gray. "I'm Commander Hale," he said, studying Ryan and his team closely. "Tell me why I shouldn't shoot you where you stand." Ryan held up his hands, keeping his movements slow and deliberate. "Because we're not your enemy," he said calmly. "We've fought the Vorn too. We know what they're capable of, and we know how to stop them." Hale narrowed his eyes, clearly skeptical. "Talk fast." Over the next hour, Ryan and his crew explained their story. The crash on Xylar, the alliance with the Xylari, and their narrow escape from the Vorn fleet. They shared details about the Eclipse's capabilities and their plans to unite scattered survivors under one banner. Though initially resistant, Hale's expression softened as he listened. "You're telling me there's still hope?" Hale asked finally, his voice quieter now. "That we can hit back at the Vorn?" "We're not promising anything," Ryan replied honestly. "But if we work together, we can give them hell." Hale nodded slowly, seemingly convinced. "All right, you've got my attention, but proving yourself won't be easy." True to his word, Hale put the Eclipse's crew through rigorous tests, challenging their skills and resolve. Kale worked alongside engineers to repair damaged equipment, while Lyra coordinated training exercises with local fighters. Claire focused on upgrading the outpost's defenses, implementing technology scavenged from the Eclipse. Together, they transformed the once dilapidated settlement into a functional base of operations. During this time, bonds formed between the humans and the colonists. Many of the survivors had lost everything to the Vorn, yet they carried an unshakable determination to reclaim their freedom. Stories of resilience and sacrifice inspired Ryan's crew, reinforcing their belief that unity could overcome even the darkest odds. As preparations continued, scouts reported disturbing news. A Vorn patrol had entered the sector, likely drawn by the increased activity around the moon. Time was running out. "We need to act now," Ryan urged during a meeting with Hale and other leaders. "If we wait for them to find us, we'll lose everything we've built here." Hale agreed, though reluctantly. "What's your plan?" Ryan outlined a bold strategy. Use the outpost as bait to lure the patrol into a trap, with the Eclipse providing air support and the colonists launching a surprise ground assault. They could strike decisively and eliminate the threat before reinforcements arrived. The operation required precision and coordination. Every member of the crew played a critical role, from Kale hacking into enemy communications to Lyra leading diversionary tactics. As the Vorn ships approached, tension mounted, but the defenders remained focused. When the attack came, chaos erupted. The Eclipse swooped in low, firing energy blasts that crippled 2 Vorn vessels before they could retaliate. On the ground, Hale's forces launched a ferocious counteroffensive, overwhelming the invaders with sheer numbers and ingenuity. Explosions lit up the night sky as the tide of battle shifted decisively in their favor. By dawn, the Vorn patrol lay in ruins, their ships reduced to smoldering wrecks. Cheers echoed through the outpost as survivors celebrated their triumph. For the first time in years, they felt a glimmer of hope, a sense that they could win. In the aftermath, Hale addressed the gathered crowd, his voice filled with pride. "Today, we proved that we're not powerless, that we can fight back. And, thanks to our new allies, we've taken the first step toward freeing ourselves from the Vorn's shadow." Ryan stepped forward, standing beside Hale as he spoke. "This is just the beginning," he said, his words carrying weight. "Out there, across the stars, others are waiting for a chance to rise up. It's up to us to show them the way. As the Eclipse prepared to depart once more, its mission clear, Kale looked back at the outpost. The scars of battle were still fresh, but so was the spirit of defiance that now defined its people. Humanity and the Xylari weren't alone anymore. They had found kindred spirits willing to stand with them, and together they would light a fire that the Vorn could never extinguish.